Hello, I'm Morgan Peckma, and this is City and State TV. Today, our guest is Darius Pridgen. He's the president of the Buffalo City Council. Councilman Pridgen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for coming.
What are the most important issues before the council right now?
There's so many important issues in front of us, whether it deals with preservation. Preservationists have a few items in front of us. One is an item of a desire to preserve a portion of segregated housing, segregated city housing from the past. That's in front of us right now. Some of the other issues that are in front of our council, most of the issues that are in front of our council really deal with economic development in those type of areas. Buffalo is on the rise currently, and so we see now a lot more requests whether it comes from zoning or planning board that are right now before the council.
Your district of Ellicott, there's a lot of development going on right now. With the development that's taking place in Buffalo, is it happening evenly throughout the city, or is it being kind of compartmentalized?
You know, I think the most of the development that we're seeing right now is split between two districts, Ellicott and Fillmore, because Fillmore has some downtown also. And I think that's because of the medical campus, of course, what's happening on our waterfront, what's happening at our hockey arena and harbor, the harbor folks. So I think that's where you see the major development happening. But what we're beginning to see is kind of a ripple effect from that. So where it is, yes, happening in the core, now we're seeing neighborhoods starting to be built up that really we're seeing a ripple effect from the core being built.
How much have you seen of the Buffalo Billion? I mean, how much of that has really come into the city? And is it too early to see what the positives are of that type of investment?
You know, I think it is too early to see what the positives are. Now, of course, there are some companies that are slated to come into the city that, on the cutting edge of ingenuity, of, really bringing something into this area that we haven't seen in a long time. You know, I was here in the days when Buffalo's only hope was for a cable giant to put up a building downtown, or for some sports company to put up their retail shop. That was the big deal. So now to hear multiple things happening in a positive manner, that's real important. So I think that what you're seeing in Buffalo is a rise, and the billion is important. Now, whether we have seen the results of that totally, I don't think we've seen all of the results yet, because we're still waiting on the brick and mortar and the jobs to come. But you have to start somewhere.
I mean, we've heard that it's about 300 million of the billion has actually come in. Is that a pretty accurate number?
You know, I think that is an accurate number. It takes time for these type of things to unfold. But if I thought that one thing that was overlooked in the benefit of the billions, it's the hope that it has brought back to the city. When you have a city that loses any hope, then it's very difficult for that city to even get a foothold in development. So I think that that's important.
In New York City, one of the major issues that we've been talking about is income inequality. How much is that a concern for Buffalonians?
Oh, it's starting to become a greater issue. You got to remember, when the economy went bust, it didn't affect Buffalo. We didn't even have a hiccup, because we already were bust. We already had high unemployment. We already had inequality and income, and so for us, now that there are potential dollars rolling into town, there is a lot of discussion about inequalities and income and opportunities, and that's exciting to me to have that discussion. Even today I met with a developer, and the developer came to me and said, "What can I do for you?" Well, usually, in political terms, that means, when is your fundraiser? For me, what I ask for is, let's really talk about how we make sure every boat rises that wants to rise in Buffalo. That it's not just a developer that's rising, realizing that it's not just the very wealthy or the very connected who know how to maneuver government, but how do you take the energy and synergy that is in Buffalo right now and that will eventually even expand and ensure that people are prepared and able to participate in this. So there's still a huge gap.
Another issue that we grapple with in New York City that now is coming to the fore in Buffalo is the potential of mayoral control of schools. What's your stand on that possibility?
The jury is still out for me. This is what I do feel. I do feel that education is the most important hallmark to our growth. If we do not get this piece right, then I think regardless of how many buildings we build, I think regardless of how much the medical campus, how well they're doing, it won't be our children who will work there. So you end up with this core in the city. So where do you think those children go? If they're not educated, if they don't graduate from high school, they have a greater potential to be the criminals of tomorrow. We've seen the statistics, we know they're there. So I think a city must concentrate on education from all levels. When I got elected, one of the things I ran on is talking about having a G4P summit, kind of named after the worldwide summits, to say government for the people, so that your folks on the city level, your folks on the state level, county level, and federal level have a conversation about education, and then from that conversation, really put the attention on education. The one thing that Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives agree about is education, that you have to have a great education system. However, we don't have those discussions. So I put out there to, because I'm a lowly council member, who's going to listen to a lowly council member? I put it out to our federal folks. Louise Slaughter took that bait, called people together, and unfortunately she was districted out of Buffalo. But from there, it was supposed to go on to the next level. But there was a hesitation from people to just get in the room and figure out a strategy. If we can figure out a strategy to grow our communities economically, to me, the first strategy we need to be looking at is how do we grow our communities educational wise? Because without that, go ahead and build it. They'll come, but the problem is what will happen will be gentrification. Other folks will move out. They'll be forced out because of the education system. So me personally, I don't care whether it's mayor's control, whether it's school board's control. In Buffalo, we're a dependent school district. So the majority of our money comes from the state of New York. So having a mayor to be in control might not be the total answer, because we still have to answer to Albany, which we all know is a very political animal. At the end of the day, we have to take the politics out of education. So if the mayor is going to take control, then the mayor has to be very serious about education. And a mayor cannot simply put political cronies on a school board because they've given to a campaign. If a mayor is going to be in control, that mayor has to have education folks, have to have serious parents on that board of education who are able to really craft, and teachers and administrators. You can't leave them out of the mix. I believe they have to be in that mix, where right now they're kind of treated as they're the employees, we're the bosses. You stay on your side, we stay on our side, parents stay on their side, and the person who's suffering most is the child in the middle who needs all of the adults to put on their big boy pants, grow up, and make it happen for the kids.
Well, we've had such strong political battles in Albany and in New York City over charter schools. It seems like it's less acrimonious in regard to that issue here. Why do you think there's a greater receptivity to the possibility of charter schools?
Well, the reason I think that we don't have as much of a battle here is because we have a really tough school system that, when you talk about 30% maybe of our African American males graduate from high school, well, it's kind of hard to argue that there needs to be a change. The question has always come up about losing money to the charters, but hey, I think that this community is going, give us something, help us in some ways. I pastor here in the church, in this city, and at one point I was bearing a third of the homicide victims, a third. And I can tell you, out of the third of the homicide victims, out of all of them in a year that I buried, maybe, 5% even graduated high school. So there's a huge statistic there. And so I think in Buffalo, it's like, just help us in any way you can to get our children graduated.
Has the city done all that it can to combat crime, to drive down the murder rate?
Oh, I don't think that we ever can blow our horn as long as there is one murder. You can't, it would be kind of self-serving and a bold-faced lie to say, oh, yes, we've done everything that we can. No, but have we done something? Sure. I think that the mayor reaching out to other agencies, the FBI, state police, the sheriff, and having these joint, really investigations and efforts, that's a huge deal. And not just with enforcement, because that's the end of this. That's the end of the stick. So, all right, so we lock up a few people, and more than likely, everybody knows they're going to be back out on the street. So you get a perp walk, and that's over. But how do you change a community's thought processes? And so what I've seen in these last few years, the council was one of the council 2 years ago was one of the first city councils that I know of in Buffalo that gave money to anti-violence groups. Now the mayor has followed that, and he's given money this year. But we started out by giving, $5,000 a piece out of our member item, and that was important to me because people were coming to the council for help with the arts, and I said, if we can help the arts, we also can help keep our community safe. And so we got those grassroots folks out there who know the gangbangers. We got the grassroots folks who know the third grader who's on the edge and got them more involved. So I think a cooperation between the city, cooperation between community groups, police, and churches, mosques, temples, because there's been more talk about the safety of our community. That's why we see a difference.
You are leading or participating in a forum tonight about the Peace Bridge.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
What are the concerns in the community about the Peace Bridge that you're trying to address this forum?
I'm attending, one of my colleagues requested that some of the federal officials appear. What I've heard from some of the people in the neighborhoods is that they're concerned about air quality. They're concerned about placement of where some of the on-ramps will be. And again, nothing is perfect in any plan. Right now, it seems that there are some moves being made to move truck traffic, and indeed, there are already some moves to do inspections over the bridge. So I think tonight it was really a meeting that was called to talk to federal officials about some of the things that we have read in news media that we are not privy to. But as I've been told, no federal official will be appearing tonight.
So this is it's kind of fact-finding on your behalf as opposed to that you've come down on one side of the issue or another.
Absolutely, and it was Joe Golombek, Councilmember Joe Golombek of the North District, who actually brought this forward, and the council supported his request to ask federal officials on the record about some of the concerns of the neighbors.
And lastly, I want to ask you, when we interviewed Mayor Brown, we talked to him about the rumors that he could possibly be added to Governor Cuomo's ticket as his lieutenant governor. And in that scenario, I know this is a bit of a bank shot, you would be the next mayor of Buffalo.
I would be the acting mayor of Buffalo.
Yes. Is that a scenario that you've thought about at all?
Well, I'm a military guy. I'm a veteran. And so as a veteran, you always have to have a strategy in case something changes. And so when I took this seat as council president, I had to be ready. That if in case the mayor is no longer in the seat of the mayor, that I have to be ready. And of course, there's a scenario in place to make that happen. I hope that our mayor remains our mayor for the next 4 years. I've heard the rumors. I haven't heard any fact about it. But if in the case that he is not, then yes, there's a plan in place to take that seat temporarily.
Council President, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.